Hi, welcome to Module 1. On this first module, we're going to figure out what real estate course is right for you. Let's start by just a touch of a story about how I picked my course. I went to the computer and I sat down and I asked the Google, what real estate courses are available in Oregon and Washington? Because that's where I started. I started there, but then I went to someone who was already in the business and I asked them what they recommended. Well, as luck would have had it, they offered me a promo code of some sort and I went to whatever they recommended, and guess what? It was great. It was all online and I went through it at my own pace because at that point I had a 2-year-old. So there was only little places of time where I could actually study. But one pro tip I can offer is I did time blocking, which means I knew from this time to this time I was only going to focus on this one thing, and it was studying for my real estate exam. That was my pro tip back then. So, picking the right course for you. Here are things you're going to want to think about. You're going to want to make sure the course fits you, meaning the format. Is it all online? Could you do it in person? Do you learn better online? Do you learn better in person? You're going to want to tailor it to you. You also want to tailor it to where you live, based on the state you live in, the country you live in, and make sure it covers the national portion of the test and the state portion of the test. So once you've narrowed down the format, either in person, online, or maybe a little both, then you're going to move forward with those courses that offer both those things. Another tip is you're going to want to look and make sure that they offer maybe some help along the way, meaning is there someone to call and ask if you have a problem? Is there a help desk? Is there a frequently asked questions? You might run into things that you have questions with, and I'm going to want you to have a place to go. Another thing you might want to consider when you're looking is make sure they work with the state and national association of realtors, because at the end of it, the most important part is that you're going to get a certificate, and that certificate is what makes it so you can go take your test. That is what we're working towards, right? Taking the test. And remember, there's two portions. There's the state portion and there's the national portion. So there's two separate tests. Now, most courses, they don't cover the test portion, meaning you're gonna have to pay for that separate. So let's go over cost. It depends on which course you're taking. Some cost, upwards of $1,000, maybe more. Other ones, you can find a Groupon for, and they're all online, and they're, $200, maybe even $100. I don't know, but they can be pretty inexpensive. But make sure you get what you're paying for. Meaning, if it only costs $100, what are you getting with that course? So make sure it fits your needs. When I was studying for my test, for whatever reason, I don't learn necessarily very well just off a computer screen. So I was lucky enough that they actually sent me a book in the mail. I know that seems maybe old school, but I really liked having a book that I could highlight and write in, as well as read off a screen. A lot of the quizzes and the pre-test were on the computer, just like your test is probably going to be, but I also liked having an actual book. So that's something to think about too. Now, when you're researching the courses, you might want to look at their history, making sure they're up to date is what I mean. Are they accredited? Have they been around a while? If they're new, how many people have taken them? Are there any reviews on them? There's lots of them out there. So if you have questions on it, feel free to shoot me an email and we can talk over your options. I'm here to help. So now you know my story of how I did mine. I did mine online, and then I went and took the test. Now, are you going to pass the first time? Let's hope so. But if not, we'll go over that a little bit later. I've taken this 3 different state tests. I've taken it in Virginia, Washington, and Oregon. Something you might want to look into, if you live where 2 states meet, you might want to be licensed in both of those states. Now, you're going to want to see if one state has reciprocity with the other state, meaning do they work well together. For instance, if you start in Washington and then want to get your Oregon license, you have to take the whole course over again in Oregon. You can't just go take the test. But if you start in Oregon, get licensed in Oregon, you don't have to do all the coursework in Washington. You just have to go to study for the test and go take the test in Washington. So ideally, Oregon first, then Washington. That's the way it currently is. May it change over time? Yeah, it might. Same thing in Virginia. When I moved to Virginia, I didn't have to do all the coursework, meaning however many hours the state requires. I didn't have to do all those hours. I just had to go sit for the state test. Your national test is good for a certain amount of time as well. For instance, if you let your license expire, what happens then? That's a whole other thing you'll have to look into, but I digress. So now we know when picking your course what to do and how I did it. I'm going to show you a tool with a little checklist of things you might want to go over as well.